All right, so get this. We're going back to the roaring 20s. Flappers, fortunes, and wouldn't you know it, faith.
Lots of faith.
Big time. And we're diving deep into the life of Aimee Semple McPherson. She took America by storm with her blend of religion and spectacle.
Yeah, she was like part evangelist, part Hollywood show woman.
Total package.
Her story is so fascinating because it really makes you think, was she a genuine spiritual leader or was she a master manipulator?
Right. Visionary or a con artist? Our favorite question.
Exactly.
Big question. We've got articles, biographical snippets, even mentions of her infamous disappearance.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other thing.
So we'll use all this to try to figure out who she really was. You ready to deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's go back to the beginning. It seems like McPherson was wrestling with these big questions from a young age. She was fascinated by both science and religion. Imagine that, trying to reconcile evolution with her Methodist upbringing.
That push and pull between faith and reason, was that like a theme throughout her life?
Oh, absolutely. And then there's that early exposure to the Salvation Army. Their emphasis on compassion and service, I mean, that really left a mark on her.
Okay.
And then, boom, she holds her first preaching engagement at just 17.
Wow, 17.
17. Then she marries Robert Semple, and they set off to do missionary work in China. But tragedy strikes. Her first husband dies of dysentery while they're there.
I mean, can you imagine the resilience to lose a partner in such a challenging environment and then keep going?
I mean, it really speaks to her commitment, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But she did. She later remarried Harold McPherson.
Right.
And that's when things really start to take off. She relocates to Los Angeles and she becomes a sensation. It's like overnight. Her dynamic preaching style, I mean, it just draws massive crowds.
This is where she really starts to lean into Pentecostalism, right?
Yes.
With the emphasis on faith healing and speaking in tongues.
All of it. And, she really understood the power of performance.
Yeah.
I mean, costumes, actors, a full orchestra in her services.
Oh, wait.
It was a full-blown production. It wasn't just preaching. It was an experience.
She was one of the first to really get the power of media, too.
Oh, for sure.
Using radio, illustrated sermons, just to reach a wider audience. And her following, I mean, it just explodes. There's even an account of her drawing 300,000 people to a revival in San Diego.
300,000 people. You need the Marines to control a crowd that size. And it wasn't just the spectacle.
Right.
McPherson's ministry, it focused heavily on faith healing.
Okay.
Thousands flocked to her, believing she could cure the sick.
I mean, picture it. People on stretchers, ambulances lined up outside her Angelus Temple, the fervor, the desperation.
It must have been something else. But of course, faith healing always comes with its own set of controversies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How do you explain these reported healings, right? Are we talking genuine miracles or something else?
Right. Some sources, like one report I saw in the Denver Post, they were pretty skeptical, described her revivals as these attacks on the senses, almost like a form of manipulation. But then you've got people like actor Anthony Quinn. He saw a healing service, and he described feeling this exhilaration, this sense of renewal.
Wow. Mixed reviews.
Total opposite ends of the spectrum.
It's that tension, that ambiguity that I think makes McPherson's story so compelling. It makes us think about all the different ways that people interpret these events and just the power of belief itself.
Right.
Wow.
But here's where things take a wild turn. 1926, McPherson vanishes. Gone. From Venice Beach, no trace.
Oh, wow.
Triggers a nationwide search, media frenzy, the works.
It was front page news for weeks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone was captivated. Sadly, 2 people even died while searching for her.
And then, 5 weeks later, she reappears in Agua Prieta, Mexico, with a story.
Oh, boy, here we go.
A dramatic story. She claims she was kidnapped, drugged, held for ransom, the whole 9 yards.
But hold on. Some of these details were, let's just say, a bit shaky.
A little suspect.
A little. Authorities found a grocery list in McPherson's handwriting
Look.
at a cottage rented by, get this, a married radio engineer
Stop.
named Kenneth Ormiston.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about a scandal here?
Maybe.
Oh.
The rumors started flying. A possible affair. Did she stage the whole kidnapping to cover it up?
I mean, that's juicy.
Juicy is right. It led to grand jury inquiries. They even considered charges of conspiracy and obstruction of justice.
Really?
But in the end, not enough evidence. Charges dismissed.
So what are we left with? Was it a real kidnapping, or was it a carefully constructed alibi?
You would think a scandal like that would be the end for most people.
Career over.
Right. But not Aimee Semple McPherson.
Oh, no. She just kept going.
She was resilient. I mean, all that controversy, the suspicion, she just kept preaching, kept leading her congregation.
Unstoppable. She was like a force of nature.
She was. And then, in 1927, she just solidifies her legacy, founds the International Church of the Foursquare Gospel.
Which is still around today, by the way.
It's thriving. That emphasis on the full gospel, Jesus as Savior, Baptizer, Healer, and Coming King, it really resonated with people. She had this incredible ability to just tap into the spiritual needs of the time.
So was that it? Was that her secret? Was she just a gifted spiritual leader with a genuine desire to help people? Or was it all about ambition, building an empire?
I mean, it's a good question. Let's look back. Remember how McPherson was fascinated by science?
Yeah.
Well, that played out in some really interesting ways throughout her career.
How so?
She embraced technology, like way more than any other religious leader at the time.
Well, she was a pioneer in using radio to broadcast her sermons, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And didn't she become one of the first women to get a broadcasting license?
Yes. In 1924, second woman in the U.S. to receive a broadcasting license.
Wow.
And that wasn't enough for her.
What else?
Elaborate sets, costumes, live actors in her sermons.
Get out.
It's like the precursor to the megachurch productions we see today.
She knew how to put on a show, that's for sure.
She did. But it wasn't just about spectacle. McPherson was also really committed to helping those in need.
In what ways?
Well, during the Great Depression, she founded this commissary at Angelus Temple. They provided food, clothing, medical care to thousands. I mean, we're talking accounts of her feeding an estimated 1.5 million people.
1.5 million.
And it wasn't just about meeting these basic needs. She was known for being so compassionate, never turned anyone away. It didn't matter what their background was, what they believed.
It's like she was putting those Salvation Army principles into action, the ones she learned as a kid.
Yes. I think that early influence, it really stayed with her. And she was smart. I mean, she even borrowed some of their tactics, incorporated music, emotional appeals into her sermons.
A shrewd blend of heart and strategy. But we got to talk about the elephant in the room.
What's that?
The accusations of financial impropriety and her lavish lifestyle, they followed her throughout her career.
True. And those accusations were never proven, but they definitely tarnished her image for some people. It really makes you wonder, was it all about the ministry? Or was personal gain part of the equation?
A big question.
Yeah.
Yet she stayed focused on her mission. I mean, even with all that intense media scrutiny, the public criticism, she almost seemed to thrive in the spotlight.
She did, and she used it to her advantage. I mean, don't forget, this was the Roaring 20s. Huge social and cultural changes happening.
Right, yeah.
McPherson, she jumped right in, took a stand on political issues.
Like what?
Well, for one, she defended the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine.
Whoa.
Not exactly a popular stance among Christian ministers back then.
No, definitely not.
So we have this charismatic, ambitious woman, built a spiritual empire, courted controversy, and genuinely helped people. But what was driving her? Faith. Or something else entirely.
$1 million question.
Isn't it?
Okay, so we covered her childhood, her rise to fame, the controversies, the healing ministry, all of her philanthropic work. But we didn't really talk about her personal life, like beyond her 2 marriages.
That's true. And it's interesting how private she remained, considering how public her ministry was. But we know she struggled with insomnia. She often turned to her faith for comfort.
There's that quote, "The saving of souls was the most important part of my ministry."
Right, and she believed that every healing was a gift from God, the glory of Jesus Christ. It gives you a little glimpse into her worldview, that unwavering belief in divine power. I mean, it's hard to fake that level of conviction.
I mean, it's powerful stuff.
It is.
But then there are all those whispers.
Yeah.
About her lavish lifestyle, the questions about her finances.
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin. Were those accusations valid? Or were they just fueled by jealousy, a desire to discredit her?
It's hard to say.
It really is.
It's like she was constantly balancing on this tightrope.
Yeah.
Between genuine faith and this hunger for power, for recognition.
It really makes you think, right? This back and forth between her public image and all those private struggles.
Yeah.
How much of what we see is the real deal? How much of it's all carefully constructed?
That's the question that hangs over all these larger-than-life figures, right?
Yeah.
Especially the ones who have these huge followings, so much influence. I mean, what's driving them? Do they really want to make a difference?
Yeah.
Or are they just looking out for number one?
It's a tough one. In McPherson's case, I don't think we can say for sure.
Yeah.
The evidence, I mean, it points both ways. We've seen the accounts of her compassion, how dedicated she was to her ministry, her genuine desire to help people.
But let's be real. We can't just ignore those scandals. The unanswered questions about her finances, that little nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe, she was using people's faith for her own gain.
That's right. And that's the real challenge here. How do we sort through these competing narratives? What was really going on in her heart?
It's a question that comes up all the time, not just for historical figures like McPherson, but for anyone in a position of power today. How do we tell the difference between genuine leadership and manipulation?
I think you have to look beyond the charisma, the spectacle, that carefully crafted image. What are their actions saying? What are their motivations? What kind of impact are they having on others?
It's like separating the sizzle from the steak. You got to look beyond the surface, dig into the real substance of their work.
Exactly. And it's not always easy. People are complicated. The truth, a lot of times, it's somewhere in between. It's not black and white.
No, it rarely is. So we've spent all this time diving deep into the life of Aimee Semple McPherson. What's the verdict? Grifter. Gifted.
You tell me.
Hmm.
We've laid out the evidence, the different perspectives, all those unanswered questions. Now it's up to you. What do you think?
I love it. But beyond the verdict, I think there's something really important here. McPherson's story. It reminds us to think critically. When we encounter these larger-than-life figures, maybe a healthy dose of skepticism is a good thing. We should always be searching for the truth, even when it's hard to find.
I agree. And in a world where you've got charisma and controversy crashing into each other all the time, being able to figure out what's authentic, well, it's more important than ever.
Totally. So next time you run into someone who seems a little too good to be true, remember Aimee Semple McPherson. Ask those tough questions. Dig a little deeper. Then you decide, are they actually changing the world? Or are they just lining their pockets?